At. I just remembered to hit record. Hello, everyone who will be watching this later. We had over 50 widows registered for this webinar, so I'm super exciting. Hi, Angela. I am super excited to have a good sized room today. So at the you should have a chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you will type your thoughts in the chat or just give me an emoji, that'll work too. And I'm going to go a minute or two after the hour. Let me turn this down just a little. I'm going to start maybe at like 11:02 just because there's usually an email that goes out right when the webinar is starting. People start hopping on. So I want to give everybody just plenty of time. Hello, Barbara. Angela says, I'm curious, have a crush on a guy, but nothing to report. All right, fair enough. Welcome, Kate. We are going to go another 2 minutes or so and then get started, but I would love to know from everyone where you are in your dating mindset journey here. Curious, Debbie's curious how to get started. Yeah, good stuff. I'd also love to share where everybody is connecting from. So I'm always interested to see. Kate says she wants to be dating again. Barbara says, I've dated a few, but nothing that clicks. It's a whole new world out there. I am amen to that. Debbie's from Southeast Wisconsin. It is freezing to me, freezing cold here today and rainy and just drizzly. And anytime I start to kind of feel bad for myself, I think about Debbie, I think about like you, I think about people like Anne who are in Canada. I think about some of the people that I get to talk to, and it's like negative 12 degrees, and then I stop feeling sorry for myself. So, yeah. Angela's from Dallas, Texas. Hi, Allison. Hi, Ivanka. Good to see you. Okay, one more minute, I think, and then we will get started. There's Pam. Kate, it was 0 degrees here in Maine. Ugh. I like the cold for like 2 weeks, you know? Like around Christmas is good, and then the end of January, starting into February, like it's just too much. It's just too much. All right, good stuff. Thank you guys for sharing. Letting me know kind of your thoughts and where you are in this dating crazy world of dating and love after loss just helps me know where to lean in a little bit more, where to share from my experience or others, and where you might find the most value. So, Stacy, welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. And if you aren't able to stay on, I do have it scheduled for an hour and a half, so till 12:30. If you have to drop off, it's okay. I'm going to send out the replay. Since it's a longer session, sometimes it takes a lot longer to upload for whatever reason. So it might be later this afternoon, but I will send out an email with the replay and next steps, and you will have all that available. So for today, I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping items. We are going to have a quick prayer. I'm going to share my story, walk you through the top 5 mistakes. And by the way, I have a bonus sixth mistake for you. Yeah, you knew you were coming to a good place. Talk about like, okay, once you know what these mistakes are, what do you actually do about it? And then I do have an invitation for you and what I call a fast action bonus. So, as a life coach, as someone who's very motivated to get other people to take action, I'm including as part of the mastermind an extra coaching bonus that ends on Friday. So if it's okay, I would like to share that with you at the end. So could you just put in the chat if that's okay if I share that with you, if I talk about the mastermind? And if I don't get any yeses, we'll just bypass that part. And then of course there's Q&A at the end and also throughout. So from a quick housekeeping perspective, okay, yes, you can share. Thank you. From a quick housekeeping perspective, so we're on Zoom webinar, which is sometimes a little bit different than regular Zoom, but you should have a chat button at maybe on the bottom of your screen and also a Q&A button or little section there. So the chat, I love energy in the chat. So if you want to throw emojis in there, if you want to say, yes, this is me, or if you want to say like, oh, I'm so lost, I don't know what you're talking about, like whatever that is, because I cannot see your faces and I cannot gauge how the audience is, I rely on the energy in the chat. So I love it. If you just like want to keep that thing going, there is an option where you see where it says to everyone in the chat box. So that's everyone can see your message. If you just want to send it to me, like you just want it to be private, you can flip that to host or panelist. If you have a question, put it in the Q&A box and that will allow me to keep track of it. So if there's lots of people getting excited in the chat, if you put it in the Q&A box, then it like helps me keep track of it to make sure that you get your question answered. So before we start, I will say a prayer here to get us going and then we will dive in. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, to be able to share experiences and stories and help other widows through this messy, crazy, weird process of figuring out what we want after loss, of figuring out all of the things around dating and if we're ready and expanding our hearts and just what those next steps look like in a place that can be honoring to you in a world that often isn't. We thank you. We ask you for wisdom and for guidance as we navigate forward. And thank you for all of the blessings that you send our way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So I just want to share my story briefly with you. I know we've got a couple of new folks here with us. Um, but if you would have asked me just over 3 years ago, um, I couldn't have imagined like sitting here having this conversation with you. Just over 3 years ago, um, my husband, it was 3 weeks shy of our 20th wedding anniversary. And my husband, Nathan, and I both got sick with COVID. It then turned into double pneumonia. And 3 years ago, I watched an ambulance come to my house and take my husband to the hospital. I had worked in healthcare for 20 years. And so I told my kids, like, hey, everything's going to be fine. Your dad's going to the hospital, and hospitals are where people go to get better, right? Um, but during that time, over the next couple of weeks, he would be in ICU. I wasn't allowed to go see him. And in a short amount of time, I would find myself sitting across a table from the attending physician and with a couple members of my family. There would be no warmth, there would be no kindness, there would be no next steps. The doctor would simply look at me and say, we think your husband is brain dead. And in that moment, it was like my world as it did for many of you, my world just stopped spinning and I tried to wrap my brain around like how did we get here? Like how is this even possible that this is even happening to me? And how in the world am I going to go home and tell my four teenagers that their dad had just died? Um, 3 weeks later, I had planned to host a really big family get together at our home out in the country here for our 20th wedding anniversary. You can see I'd already ordered the t-shirts. I'd already planned for everyone to come over, but instead of hosting family and friends over for a celebration as a wife, I hosted family and friends shattered as a widow and now a solo mom to these four teenagers. A few months later, I had a memorial garden built in our backyard, on our side yard for Nathan. And when I had it built, I had intended that this would be like something beautiful and I could sit out there, listen to the little waterfall that came out, and that this would just be a tribute to the love that we had. But instead of being comforted by it, I was tormented by it. And I would just sit out on this bench and cry and cry and cry. And my chest would hurt. And I would understand like how a spouse could die from broken heart syndrome. Like in those moments, I wanted to die. And I remember specifically sitting there one afternoon and just wondering, like, what is the point of any of this anymore? I worked a very demanding executive job. I traveled nearly full time for work. So it was a constant struggle getting kids where they need to go, making sure things were taken care of. It took about 5 hours to mow my lawn every other week. And I was just exhausted. And I remember sitting there thinking about my kids and thinking about, even though I didn't die, I was still here. I felt dead on the inside. And my kids had effectively almost lost two parents. So, sitting here on this bench, I made a decision that I wasn't going to live another 40 or 50 years this way, that I had to figure out how I was going to get on the other side of grief, that I was going to have a life that I could enjoy again. I didn't know if it was going to be possible. I didn't know how it was going to be possible, but I was determined that I was going to do whatever it took to figure it out. And so I was sitting here on this bench and I remember closing my eyes and I just said out loud, I was like, Nathan, I love you and I miss you and I can't live like this anymore. I have to move forward. And I stood up and I walked inside and I threw myself into learning everything I possibly could about grief. I went and got two certifications through Faith-Based Coaching Academy and through the Grief Recovery Institute. I consumed books and courses and podcasts, and I even started my own podcast where I would interview hundreds of other widows and talk to all of these other widows, just hearing their story and hearing what helped them and understanding more about the actual grief process. I'm happy to share that today I do love my life again, and I've healed my heart. I've gone on many adventures. I actually ended up remarrying. I just went last week to the Dominican Republic and celebrated my 1 year wedding anniversary with Robert that you see here in the middle. I gained a bonus son in this process. But my goal here is to share that your future, a beautiful future, is possible for you, and that you have the ability to create a life that excites you and that is full of joy. Um, just a little bit about me, for those of you that don't know. So as I shared, I did go obtain some coaching certifications. I was instructed by a 20-year practicing clinical psychologist and therapist, Betsy Guerra. You've probably heard me talk about her. She's amazing. But my approach is really a combination of being faith-based, psychology, counseling, spirituality, and coaching, like all meshed together. This is why I chose Betsy's Academy. This is what I absolutely loved about her is that we get to, in coaching, break the traditional counseling mold and incorporate divine guidance and some other coaching methods. So, Brave Widow has impacted widows in over 20 countries, which is also super humbling and exciting. Okay, so um, when I was thinking about dating, I noticed several of you said that you were curious, and that was me. Like, I was super curious shortly after Nathan had died, actually, because I'd heard all of the horror stories. So when Nathan and I met, like AOL Instant Messenger was just starting to be a thing. Like I didn't have a MySpace, okay? It was out there. The dial-up was out there. But it was very taboo to meet stranger danger off the internet, right? Like, it's just you don't do that. So, the dating world had totally changed from what it was when I had met Nathan. And so I started from a place of curiosity, of wanting to know, like to go on the apps and to see what was out there, to see what the dating process was like. And let me tell you, I made a ton of mistakes, okay? I attracted all sorts of the wrong kind of people. I wasted a lot of time. I met people that turned into pen pals. I had my heart broken significantly twice. I even got caught up in like a professional scamming thing where someone was operating out of an airport hangar. Okay. So listen, as I walk you through these mistakes, you are not to use this information to beat yourself up. That's not the point. You don't have my permission to do that. As we walk through the mistakes, as we walk through some of the things you might be thinking, you might be trying, things that are holding you back, you might think to yourself, oh, yeah, that's me. But it's not meant for you to use it against yourself. It's just to bring awareness to some of the pitfalls and the traps that are out there so that you can avoid them and have a much better dating and love after loss experience. Okay, so mistake number one is rushing into a relationship. And as we walk through these, I would love to know in the chat, even if you just want to put like a little emoji, like reacting to it. Let me know if it resonates with you. But I would love to know what you guys are thinking as I walk through these. So, rushing into a new relationship. When Nathan died, I felt so incredibly lonely, like crushingly isolated, lonely. And I have spent much of my life as an introvert, as somebody who is very reserved, who doesn't really open up. I picture myself like a little onion, and I got a lot of layers that people have to get through. And so Nathan was really the only person I felt like knew me as much as anyone out there. Like, even though we were married for 20 years and maybe he didn't make it through all the layers that I had at times, like Nathan just knew me. He got me. He cared about what happened in my day. Because of my job and being on the road all the time, I didn't have a lot of friends outside of work. Like we worked a lot of hours, we did a lot of big projects together. So I had friends through work, but most of my work friends didn't live anywhere near me. And so it just fed into this additional feeling of being lonely. And I really recognized that I didn't really have much of a social circle outside of work, honestly, besides some family. That was really my social circle. And so I desperately wanted like a best friend, like someone I could talk to, someone who just cared about my day. Like I remember telling my dad I used to fly to a place, like let's say I flew to Richmond and get to the airport, get the rental car, get to the hotel, and maybe it was like 10 or 11 at night. And I would text Nathan and say, okay, I made it to the hotel. Everything's good. I'm going to bed. And I'm like, you don't know how many times I like reach for my phone and be like, oh, well, I don't have anyone to text. And my dad would say, well, you can text me and you can tell me you got to the hotel, but it's just different, right? Your dad, your family, your friends, they can help you not feeling lonely, but losing your other half is totally different. So from this place of loneliness, I went, and from curiosity, I went on the dating apps to see what was out there. I was also like super scared that someone I worked with was going to see me. I was worried what they were going to think about me being on a dating app. I was worried about my employees seeing me on a dating app. When you're a senior vice president and you have thousands of employees, you're a little bit worried that one of them's going to screenshot your dating app profile and send it around work, right? So when I first went on the dating app, I actually posted a picture very similar to this. Like it was just a cloud. It wasn't even my face. And I had this crazy idea that I'm just going to post this picture and I'm going to write a super engaging profile and I'm just going to see what happens. And I did start talking to a few people and one person in particular that I'm going to tell you a little bit about later. But in the beginning, I was just so afraid and I just so desperately lonely that I wanted to connect with pretty much anyone. All right, I've got a question. This is scheduled to go through 12:30. How long is this? Is the question. This is scheduled to go through 12:30 Central Time, so a little over an hour, and I will send out a replay though if you have to drop. No problem. Okay. So, part of the challenge that I had when I went out on these dating apps and I put my little cloud picture out there and I was trying to like figure out this whole dating thing is I didn't know what I wanted. So, if you've ever looked at the apps or profiles online or talked to people, there's all these questions like, do you want more kids? Do you want to be married or do you just want companionship? Do you want friendship? Do you want someone who has cats? Like there's all these questions, and I would just really swirl and swirl and swirl because I didn't know, like, well, what do I want? Do I want to get remarried? I didn't even know. I wasn't sure. I just knew I wanted someone to talk to. So, because I didn't know what I wanted, I kept attracting like all the wrong kinds of people, right? Like people who would never fit into my life long term. Like it just wouldn't ever work out. I kept talking to people for way longer, like thinking to myself, oh, this person plays in a this person is a music producer from California and he throws parties when they release new albums. And yeah, maybe that could work. Like, no, that's not going to work. But because we swirl and we swirl and we swirl and we're unsure of what we want, then we can't attract the right people. So Nicole made a great comment and said, I know what I want and I'm still attracting the wrong men. So we are going to talk about that here in a little bit because I had to work on this too. So here are some thoughts for you to consider. Again, not to beat yourself up, not to feel guilty, but just things for you to be aware of, things for you to like walk in eyes wide open as you're dating. So one would be, are you dating out of loneliness? Is there a hole that you're trying to fill? Do you feel incomplete or impatient? Like, I gotta hurry up and find somebody. Like, I'm not considered complete until I'm with someone. How volatile is your grief? So, do you still have big throes of grief? And are you in your first year? Now, I'm not the person that's going to tell you, like, oh, you need to get through your first year or two before you start dating. I don't think that's the case. But if you are in your first year, You need to go eyes wide open and you need to be aware that it's going to feel more volatile. The first Christmas you go through, the first birthday, the first anniversary, the first major holidays, like all of that, even though you might feel like you're doing better, and put better in quotation marks, that can like bring up all these strong feelings, right? Of like, oh, they should be here and what is this? What do I want? So it's not that you can't date and go through that. You absolutely can, but just know that it's going to be normal to feel like you have a lot more ups and downs when you're early on or when your grief is still pretty volatile. And then, do you know what your dating goal is? Like, do you want to remarry? Do you just want to date? Like, what is it that you want? It's kind of the place that we start from. So, what our solution, like what to do instead, is we want to build a life that we love first. We want to love our life, fall in love with our life that we have now, and date second. And I know you're like, I don't even know what this means. So, I'm going to talk about this more in another section here. But instead of looking at dating and rushing into a new relationship because you're lonely, because you feel incomplete, because you think somebody's going to save you, you want to date from a place of, I love my life. Even if I never found someone or got remarried, I'm still excited about life. Like I feel good about life. But if I found someone to share memories with, and if I found someone to build a life with, like that would be icing on the cake. But there's still a lot of cake going on underneath here. Okay, mistake number two is leading with fear. And Angela says, same here, Nicole. Okay, so when I was thinking about going on the dating apps, I was stacking all of these fears against me, right? I had all these thoughts. Oh, nobody's gonna, I'm a widow with four kids. Who's gonna want me? I'm almost 40. All the good guys are already gone. Like they're already taken. They're just, that's it. That's it. You hit like 30 or 40, they're all gone. All the ones that are out there, just they have issues. Have you guys thought any of these thoughts? Put some thoughts in the chat. I want to know some of the thoughts that you've had. I remember telling my coach, like one of my coaches, I was like, I'm gonna have to lose like 50 pounds before I get on these dating apps. And she was like, you don't have to do anything. But if she hadn't told me that, I would have waited like, I don't know, till eternity to go back out on the dating apps. I'm gonna have to settle. That was like a big one. I kept thinking is like, okay, well, you're not like 18 anymore, and so you're gonna have to like lower your expectations, lower your choices. You're really gonna have to back off of what you wanted. All right, people in the chat are saying yes, absolutely. They are single for a reason. Definitely have thought all the good guys are gone. Need to lose my tummy. The new age lingo is ambiguous and confusing. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I believed all of these lies. I believed that, I was going to have to settle. I mean, listen, I live in a rural town in Arkansas, okay? How many guys are just super excited? First of all, there'd be nobody around me, is what I believed, right? I lived out in the country, like 20 minutes away from the nearest town of 8,000 people. Wow, impressive. And about 45 minutes away from a town with like 80,000 people. So I really live far out. I didn't like to go out. I've always been a homebody. I've always been tired on the weekends from working, didn't want to go out. I hate small talk. I'm an introvert. I'm very reserved. Like all these thoughts just piled and piled and piled up to where I thought like I'm really gonna have to settle here. So what happened is I would tell myself this beautiful lie that was like, well, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's gonna just have no issues. So let's look over all of these red flags. Like, let's just, okay, I'm gonna have to concede over here, or Well, maybe this story this person's telling me doesn't really add up, but maybe they're just exaggerating about stuff. Like maybe, maybe it could work out. And because nobody's perfect, I know I'm gonna have to make some concessions somewhere. So even though this person is located in Texas and I'm in Arkansas, like I could they could move here for a while, and then my kids graduate high school, and then I can move there for a while. Like all that could work out. It would be fine. Um, yeah, I just it turned a blind eye to what should have been warning signs, or if you want to call them red flags, or just those little things that make you go, well, but nobody's going to be perfect, right? And that created a lot of time wasting. Okay, that's what we're not going to do with Love After Loss. We're not going to be wasting a bunch of time. Allison says, I definitely worry about taking advantage of. Jessa says, where I live, it's very rural. There's none left. Everyone knows your business. And Debbie says, same. Okay. So, what we want to do is stop operating when we operate out of fear and I'm going to go back to this slide. We operate out of all of these thoughts. We operate with what's called a scarcity mindset. So you may not have ever heard that before. That's kind of the coach lingo, but a scarcity mindset is your thinking like, oh my gosh, there's one person maybe for me, and I just got to find them. I just got to find that one. There's just one, and maybe there's not even one, but there's just one. When the reality is we want to operate out of an abundance mindset, which is fortunately for you as the woman, and what I coach widows through dating is that you don't chase, you don't search, you don't look out, you attract. Okay, that is your goal, is to attract the right person to you, which means that you have an abundance of people to choose from. I don't believe you just have like one soulmate and that's it. That would have been like my shot with Nathan, and then that would have been it. But I believe that you have a choice. You have a choice to look at another person across the table and say, "Okay, I choose to build a life with you with all of your imperfections, with all of my imperfections. Like we're committed. We're going to do this with each other." And that you have a choice. You're operating out of an abundance mindset. And so what we want to do is we're going to attract and wait for the right person. If we're so distracted with all these people wasting our times that we know aren't a good fit, then we're too busy to see the right person. We're too busy talking with other people, getting entangled with other people, and it's not going to allow the right person to find us. Okay, let me read the chat here and then I'll go to the next one. My late husband set the bar extremely high. Neither of us were perfect, but we accepted each other as we were, quirks and all. Yes, I love that, Angela. Anna says the hardest one for me was knowing if I had the courage to tell a man I wasn't interested. I didn't want to hurt others. I had to know I could do this before getting out there. It's easy for me to put others before myself. Yep, Anna, we're going to talk a little bit about people pleasing. And Kate says the same. Okay, good, good. Thank you guys for putting that in the chat. This is perfect. Okay, mistake number 3 is using the other person as a therapist. So, I shared with you soon after Nathan died that I was insanely curious about the dating apps, right? I went out there, I put my little cloud picture because I was too afraid to put my real picture out there. Um, and I was just desperate for someone to talk to. And so someone did find me. And this person was from England, from the UK. And so that felt very safe, right? Because it's not like they're going to show up on my back door tomorrow. If I don't want to talk to him anymore, I can just cut him off, right? Like it was very safe. And so we just started chatting back and forth. And I finally sent him my real pictures through the app, through messaging. And it was a wonderful emotional relationship that lasted many months. He traveled twice to the US and we met up and we hung out. And whenever I would see him in person, I would just realize like this isn't just isn't gonna work. Um, he had just recovered from a near-death experience. He had technically died in the hospital and was brought back to life. And so we talked a lot about grief and death and why do some people get a second chance and some people don't get a second chance. And he actually was mad that he was brought back. That he felt so at peace and so accepted and so like free, just so free from worry and anxiety and all the things of the world that he didn't want to come back to life. And so we just like had all of these deep, meaningful, like amazing conversations. And he was trying to figure out what he wanted with life, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted. And, I got to talk through like, oh, maybe I do want to get remarried. Maybe I don't. There was no judgment. Like it was just really, really good. But I spent months talking to this person. And I knew in the back of my mind, like long term, this really just isn't going to work out. Like this person isn't going to be like a great father figure for my kids, or, there's a bunch of logistics we would have to navigate. But I didn't want to break it off because I was lonely, because I wanted someone to talk to, because this person had kind of become my therapist and that person that knew me so well. And then I was going to have to be lonely again. I was going to have to be on my own again. And the more I kept kicking that can down the road, the harder and harder and harder it got to untangle myself from this person. So here are some things to consider when you find yourself in this situation or maybe getting in this situation. Are you becoming overly dependent on this person? Do they act as your therapist? Are you using them as a way to kind of test the waters and figure out what you want? Do you communicate expectations that you have for this relationship? Like, do you feel that you can have good, open, and healthy communication? Do you find yourself playing a lot of mind games? And is this a way, like when you shut down instead of communicating, is this a sort of relationship where you feel like, oh, well, if I get tired of talking to you one day, I can ghost them. Like it's fine. Oh, Stacy, I feel like I'm the therapist in the relationship. Yes. I have to refrain from trying to be their, this is Angela. I have to refrain from being their therapist. That's a social worker in me coming out. Yes. I have to remind myself it isn't my job to try and change anyone. It's my job to attract someone who I'm willing to accept as they are, but not settle. Beautifully said. Anna, it's such a part of the process learning to realize once we know it isn't going to work to break it off. It is a part of the process and it is difficult. Um, I mean, it is difficult. He was a great person, and I'm a great person. And just because we know like this isn't meant to work out long term, this isn't going to work out long term, doesn't mean that one of us is the bad guy. And when you're a people pleaser, like I was for most of my life, and when you genuinely care about other people, as I do, then that makes it really hard to be like, wow, you're a great person. I'm a great person. Nobody's done anything wrong. But this really just isn't going to work out as much as we try to jump through hoops. And now I have to untangle it in a way that's not like, oh, let's still be friends. Like, no, we have to just, it's over. That's really, really hard. So, one of the best things that you can do is to have healthy and open communication about your expectations and about where you are. And if you are still trying to figure it out, that you let that person know. And for some people, they're going to say, like, well, come back. If you decide, I can't do that. If you decide that you're ready, that you want a relationship, or what you want, then come back. But I don't want to play these games of on again, off again. Yes, let's do. No, let's don't. Some people they're not emotionally able to do that or willing to do it. And at one point, I wasn't willing to do it either. I don't want to spend years of my life playing hot and cold with somebody. Okay, mistake number four. I'm just checking the time here. All right. Ignoring your own boundaries or values. So we talked about this a little bit, right? Like as women especially, we want to be likable and we want to be warm and we want to be the cool girl and we want to be liked and we don't want to, we want to have boundaries, but like, okay, well, I don't want to be so rigid or cold or, okay, I'm going to concede on this or on that. But what I have learned not only through life and through my own experiences, but through I've got some good resources if you guys want to read books on dating or you want like more course style things on communication and dating. I spent hours studying this, like, right, like trying to figure it out. And what I have learned is one of the differences with men, right, is that they're going to test your boundaries and they're actually going to respect you more if you stick with your boundaries than if you don't. And that's one of the reasons why so many women get caught up in hookups and then don't ever get a call back the next day or ever. Because a guy is going to push the boundaries. They're like a kid. They're going to test them, they're going to push them, they're going to try them, but they will actually respect you more if you hold firm to your boundaries and your values. And one of the things I teach widows in dating, we actually use your values as a filter. So your values are going to be the first filter. I don't care what kind of music they like. I don't care what kind of movies they like. It doesn't matter. You can figure that stuff out later. But do our values aligned? Do our core beliefs align? Is what we want for the future aligned? And if not, they're not your person. They're not your person. But because sometimes we're lonely or we want to be in a relationship or we want to be liked or we want to be cool or whatever, we, back off some of our values and back off some of our boundaries. So this could be anything from values like for me, I personally, you can create your own values. For me, I always started with faith. Do we have similar faith values? Do we have similar family values, financial values? So I don't ask people like, well, how much do you make? But I want to know, like, what do you think about debt? What do you think about how much credit card debt someone should have? Like, I want to know, are we on the same page about those things? I want to know, do you get along with your family? Like, what's your relationship like with your parents? Those types of things, what are your thoughts on raising kids and how they should be raised and how you interact with in-laws, all of that. That's the foundation before we even really get to some of the other things. But whatever your values are, you want to be clear on that and hold firm to those and to your boundaries. And so our solution here is to create very clear boundaries and values and to hold to them. If you're not a Netflix and chill kind of person, then stick with that boundary, stick with that value. Don't back down because you want to attract the person who looks at that value and who looks at that boundary and is like, yeah, I like that. I'm attracted to that. That's cool. Okay, let's see here. I use my rigidity as a filter, weed them out. I'm not cool. You are so cool, Nicole, whatever. Um, Nicole, you're my people. I'm the same. Discernment all the way. Okay, so your rigidity as a filter. I actually saw a video today and the lady on there, she described it as an allergy. She's like, I tell people to put an allergy in their dating profile, which is like something that will either be, let me think, how can I say this without getting political? Okay. President Trump is usually very what we call polarizing. Either you really love the guy or you really don't love the guy. And there's not a lot of people like in the middle. Okay. It's very yes or no with him as a personality, just generalizing here. Okay. It's kind of like maybe your faith or something that's super important to you. Whatever that allergy is, you want to try to put it out there where it's either going to attract the right person to you and it's going to repel the wrong people away from you. No smoke. Yeah, I'm with you there. Barbara, yes, that and that can be something for people as well. Okay. Number 5 is avoiding self-development. Listen, I'm an old school fantasy girl at heart. Okay. I love dragons and knights. And this is actually me standing in front of an old castle ruins out in England. And I had put on my dating profile, actually, before I met Robert, I had put on my dating profile something tongue in cheek that was like, I'm waiting on my knight in shining armor to stop messing around and come find me. Like, I don't know what you're out there doing. Stop messing around and show up. Okay. But we we are not incomplete. We are not broken. You don't need someone to come save you. You got this. Okay. Having dating someone, marrying someone, having an other half does not make you a whole person. You're not, it's nothing's gone wrong. Like nothing is broken inside of you where you cannot stand on your own. After Nathan died, it was so weird to me. I had never been the only adult in the house on my own. I've still never lived alone because I have all these kids. But I married Nathan when I was 18. And so I'd lived with my family and my parents my whole life. We moved in together and then he died. And all of a sudden, I was the only responsible adult in the house. And that was really weird. And it felt like I needed another person to make adult decisions that wasn't me. So these are questions again to ask yourself. Are you repetitively attracting the wrong type of person? Which I know some of you shared you are. Do you repeat relationship or patterns that you don't want? Do you feel broken or incomplete? Are you easily anxious or detached from other people? I threw in this about attachment styles because if you haven't learned about attachment styles, it's definitely a topic worth learning about. It will help you so much with all the anxiety and emotional roller coaster drama of texting and calling and oh, somebody's pulling away and oh, somebody's too clingy and all of those things. It's definitely worth pursuing. And it is a topic that I teach about as well. But being familiar with attachment styles is important. And so, our solution here is that you want to prepare yourself for a healthy relationship, which is I'm not dating out of loneliness. I'm not dating out of a sense of incompleteness, but I know what I want out of life. I'm headed down this path. And if you want to come on this path with me, that's great. There's a dating coach named Matthew Hussey. He has a million videos on YouTube. He was a celebrity dating coach, has a ton of credentials, but you can find a lot of his stuff free, okay, out there online. And I don't agree with what he says 100%, but I think he taught me a lot about relationships and communication, even things that I thought to myself, wow, I really wish I knew that when I was still married to Nathan. That would have helped me so much in our relationship and in our communication. But one of the analogies that he uses that I really like is that you want to view your life as like you are a train and you are moving forward. You're going down the track and you're moving forward. And a train will stop at different train stations, right? So you stop and you like meet someone and they can decide to get on the train and go down the track with you, or they can decide not to get on. But either way, you're not staying at the train station. You are moving forward. You are creating your life. You're not sitting around waiting for them. And a lot of times, what we do as women, because we want to be liked and we want to be agreeable and we want to people please, is we will put our life on hold for that other person. Like maybe you're into yoga, maybe you're into other activities, but the moment you start dating someone, you like hyper focus on that person. You're constantly thinking about them. You stop going to class because they want to take you to dinner. You drop everyone and everything in your life and you solely focus on that person in front of you. And that's not the way that we want to look at dating. And that's not something that ultimately is even attractive from that other person, but it's something that we catch ourselves doing. And so we want to be able to prepare ourselves for a healthy relationship and for building a life that we can love again. Angela says, I feel detached. I feel like some people avoid me because grief is awkward. I'm known as the woman whose husband died. I want people to see me just as me, Angela, and not label me. Yes. And what I would add to that, Angela, what I learned, I'll give you a pro tip. The more I normalized it, the more other people felt it was normal. So I didn't put that I was widowed on my profile. And trust me, I've tried this like 50 different ways, okay? It's been tested. It's tried and tested. I didn't put it on my profile because it would attract like scammers and weirdos, and that was not helping me at all. And I wouldn't lead with that. Like, wouldn't, when I connected with someone, I wouldn't be like, okay, well, just buckle in, here's my story. I'm a widow. All of that. Like, when the question would naturally come up, and I would wait for them to ask, like, so, hey, why are you on here? Or what are you looking for? Tell me your story. Then I would bring it up and I would just bring it up like, yes, this happened. It completely changed my life and who I am as a person. And I'm in such a great place now. I've learned so much and I'm, looking forward to the future. I, in the beginning, I didn't lead like that, right? Like I made it a big deal and I made it awkward. I made it uncomfortable and it made other people afraid because they don't know, can they ask you questions? Can they not ask you questions? Like people don't know how to navigate that. But the more you just talk about it normally and the more you just say, hey, and if you have any questions, about what happened or about our relationship, like I'm just very open with that. Like people really like that confidence and the ability to have those conversations. What did you put if you didn't put widowed? Well, I just didn't put, I don't think I put anything on there. If there's an option to put single or something, maybe I did, but I used to have widowed as like a line in my paragraph in my profile that I was widowed, but don't I'll go down a rabbit trail. I'm not gonna do it. But I'm just sharing my experience. I feel like people were either too afraid to match with me because they didn't know what that meant. They didn't know how to interact with me. Or I would get a bunch of people that would be like, I'll make you my wife. I'll move from this other country to be with you. Like it was too much. So for me, it was better for me not to put it on there and just to bring it up in the middle of a conversation like it's normal. Like, oh yeah, this is what happened. And it was hard and it was like the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life, but I've done so much healing and I'm in a much better place now. And it has helped me really appreciate being in a good relationship. And it was beautiful. Okay, so bonus mistake number 6, suffering in the process. Some of you were on a grief recovery call with me on Sunday, and I made the comment that, oh, you wouldn't expect to see so many people who are smiling on a grief recovery call, but we like to have fun. We want this process to be fun. Okay, so I have a question for you before I pull this up. So I want you to imagine, close your eyes for a moment, okay? And I want you to imagine that you are put in a room with I don't know, 1,000, let's say 1,000 men. Okay, I know it's weird. But let's say that someone tells you, look, your soulmate, the perfect person for you, is in that room with 1,000 other men. How many people do you think you would need to talk to before you found him? Okay, open your eyes. Just throw a number in the chat. There's no wrong answer, by the way. But if there was 1,000 guys out there and they said your person is in there, how many people would you have to talk to? I love it. Anna's like me, probably all of them. It's like probably 9.99. Yeah. 65, 100, 500, 10 good filters. Oh, I like that, Nicole. Sneaky. All of them. Okay, the point is 1,000. I don't, I probably talk about him too freely. Well, there's a balance there, Angela, but it's all good. The point I'm trying to make here is that if you think about all the potential people that are out there, to an extent, this is kind of a numbers game, okay? So where we tend to come from is that scarcity mindset where we think the number's really teeny tiny, very small. But the reality is the number's really big. And so we want to enjoy the process. So what I had to do in changing my mindset was instead of getting my hopes up and instead of seeing a profile like, I really hope this one works out and sending them a message and having a conversation and then being let down is like, okay, I am here to attract the right person. I'm doing my job. I'm gonna put myself out in the universe in person. Okay. I'm going to do things. I'm going to meetups. I'm telling people like, hey, I would tell people like, hey, if you know a guy that wants to live out in the country but also loves to travel, please send him my way. Totally interested. I would talk with, unless there was somebody that had a deal breaker in their profile or a non-negotiable, I would talk to them and I would put them through my values filter, right? It wasn't an interrogation. I didn't have like 20 questions, but just through like normal, chilled out conversation, run them through my value filters. And so how I would look at it is like, okay, I talked to this person, you're not my person. Talk with this person, you're not my person. I didn't take it personal that someone didn't like me. I would just go, oh, well, they're just not my person. I haven't talked to enough people yet. I haven't found them yet. He hasn't found me yet. And that's why I said jokingly, I said earlier, I put in my profile, like, I wish you'd stop messing around and come find me. I'm tired of waiting, but I want to keep waiting because you're going to be worth it. I know. Okay. But when we're in a mindset of abundance and we enjoy the process and we laugh at the silly messages people send and we laugh at the profiles where someone's in an open marriage and we're like, yeah, I'm totally not into that. But can you believe somebody put this in their dating profile? Like, if you will enjoy the process, it will completely change your experience. So, some things to consider. The first is just that part of this is a numbers game. And one of the other things that I learned that was really helpful is that you can actually it's also a numbers game through what they call gateway people. So let's say you're standing in line at the grocery store and you're waiting for your turn and there's a little grandma in front of you and you're just talking to the grandma and you're like just striking up a conversation and all of a sudden, the grandma, you're not going to be dating this grandma, right? She's a grandma. But the grandma might know someone who might want to date you or who might be interested. And so when we think about this being a numbers game, it's not just about like being open to talk to people and being open to realizing that this isn't like, oh, in 2 weeks you're going to find the love of your life, but in realizing like this is going to take some time. I'm going to have to probably talk to a lot of people. You don't have to go on a lot of dates. I did not, right? Like you said, Nicole, we used the filter. We talk to people on the phone. We FaceTime. Then maybe we go in person if we're meeting people online. But you don't have to go on a bunch of dates, but just doing things like practicing small talk and going to places just to meet other people, even if you're not going to necessarily date that specific person, they might be able to introduce you to someone else who you might be interested in. So, as we think about the dating experience and how long this is going to take and the whole process, is we want to run the marathon. Okay. We're jogging it. This isn't a sprint. We're going. It's going to be a while. We're going to be here for a little bit. And that's okay because we're walking into this experience with confidence, with believing that something God has something beautiful and amazing for us, and that we are putting out the right energy to attract our person. We're the beacon of light so that the right person can come and find us. Um, Everything I've done in my life included him. Yes, I can totally resonate with that. And I could get into a rabbit hole trail about that, but I'll be good. Okay. So recapping our top mistakes, rushing into the relationship, leading with fear, using them as a therapist, ignoring boundaries, avoiding self-development, and then suffering in the process. Okay, we know what some of the top mistakes are. Like, what do we do with all this? Like, how do we boil it down and make it simple? How do we start to do that? Well, what I did and what I help widows do is to create a life that you can love. The more that you can step into the life that you want, the more that you can attract the right kind of person to you. So one of the examples that I share is that I would when I was trying to get in the right mindset of dating, I would think about, okay, what are the things that I want to do? Well, I like going to shows. So I bought season tickets to the symphony. I bought two season tickets. One seat for a whole season was empty next to me. Yes, it was weird. Yes, it was awkward. Yes, I thought there was like the flashing light that was like, look at this weirdo sitting by themselves. It's the widow. Like, everybody, look. Yes, I got dressed up. I did my hair, my makeup, and I took myself to the bookstore and to dinner and to the symphony. I went to an entree leadership conference by myself, didn't know one other person there among thousands of people. I got to meet Dave Ramsey, of all people. I bought real estate property. I started a podcast. I flew to other states. There's a picture of me with my friends at the Cincinnati Reds game. Um, so many things that I went and did to start to create this life where I was excited about it, where I wasn't like waiting on the other person to be able to do things and to move forward. And the reason this starts attracting the person that you like, one is proximity. So when I was going to real estate meetings, when I was going to conferences, when I was going and meeting up with friends, it puts you in a proximity to other people that have similar interests, values, and goals as you. So you get to know people, you get to know gateway people, right? It also gives you something to talk about, like something easy in your back pocket that you can pull out so that you stop having all these conversations that's like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, not much. Just watch Netflix. How about you? Oh, yeah, me neither. Okay, yeah. All right, great. Okay. No, you always have something to talk about. Like, oh, I did this. Oh, I have this coming up. Oh, I'm going to go on this trip. Or, hey, I've been working on my pickleball skills. Whatever it is. Like, hey, I randomly took a line dancing class. Like, who wouldn't be like, wait, what? You randomly took a line dancing class. I have to know about this. What made you do that? Like, having the ability to easily talk about these things, to meet other people, just to get your confidence up, your energy up, your life force up is very, very attractive to other people. And so you want to do it so that you can love your life. And also, it will help you attract another person who wants a similar life. So, for example, I was on and off the dating apps many times. Felt like eternity, okay? I would get on and get off and get on and get off. And yes, by the way, one of my ex-employees did try to match me on a dating app. It's another story for another time, but yes, it did happen. And guess what? I'm here. It's fine. It wasn't a big deal. I just declined to match that person, okay? So, yeah, might have weird times. It's fine. It's going to happen. But when I took the time to figure out what I wanted, to stop putting my life on hold, to create a clear vision, and to start living the life that I wanted to live with my person, when I was ready, I went back on the dating apps. 2 weeks later, I started talking with Robert. We talked for 3 weeks. We FaceTimed during that time. We met up in person. He actually lived 12 minutes from me in my little small town, just crazy. We've been in the community like 30 years. A bunch of people knew him. So even though I had all those thoughts, like, oh, I live in a rural place, there's only 8,000 people, there's not going to be anyone, all the good ones are taken, on and on and on and on and on. None of that ended up being true. None of it ended up being true. And so when we met, and I would tell him, like, we met in June, and I was like, oh yeah, in July my daughter and I were going on an Alaskan cruise. Oh yeah, I just went to this conference and met Dave Ramsey. Oh yeah, I'm part of a real estate investing group. If you want to come, you can. All of those things. He was like, oh my gosh, that's really exciting. I love to travel. I love to do this. I love to do that. Like, it gave us something to talk about and to start to work towards. So we planned a trip with my in-laws to Maine and went on a lobster boating thing where we got to cook our own lobsters. Like, starting to love your life and to live the life that you want to live with that other person will start to put you in a good proximity and start to help you attract the right kind of person to you. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm going to come back to the chat. There's lots of good comments. I stopped putting my life on hold. And if you have done this, I feel for you. Because I did this for a really long time. For example, I bought 40 acres of like pasture land. I wanted to build a house. And I couldn't work on the house plans because all I could think is like, oh, what if the person that I meet doesn't want to live in the country? What if they don't like this type of house? What if they don't like this style? What if they don't like what color paint I pick? Like, all of this, it was like my whole life had come to a screeching halt because I was like, well, but I might meet somebody and we might go down a different path. So what? What I didn't realize at the time was the right person for me was going to be on the same journey, on the same path. The right person for me wasn't going to be intimidated that I had four teenagers. Good grief. Widow with four teenagers, best dating profile app ever, right? But the right person for me was going to love kids, was going to love a big family, was going to love being part of family traditions. But I didn't know that for a really long time. If I had known that, I would have had so much more confidence. So, how do we get started? Like, what do we do to be able to go through this dating process with confidence? So, you'll see this little planter over here on the right. Um, right after I'd gone to the Entre Leadership conference, I think with Dave Ramsey, I graduated from the Faith-Based Coaching Academy for my life coaching school. I flew down to Miami. Dr. Betsy has a house, Airbnb out there right on the beach. We had gone through 6 months of training of like 12 hours a week of training and coaching every single week for 6 months straight. Like, it was a very intense program. Okay. So this graduation was like a big deal. And one of the things that we did was, instead of creating a vision board, is we created a vision planter. And for the first time, I was like, I think I do want to date again. I think I do. I think I'm ready. And so, as you can see here, like, I got a picture of my family on there under the word purpose. And then I put on there a little bit of romance. And I remember my coach was like, oh, that's amazing. Um, but that was maybe a month before I decided to go back on the apps and start to meet someone. So the first thing that we do is we want to prepare our heart for dating again. We want to expand our heart. And one of the ways I think about this is like the Grinch. If you've ever seen the Grinch movie, how the Grinch stole Christmas. And remember, he had to like grow his heart. His heart was tiny and he had to grow it. So we talk about expanding our capacity, expanding our ability to make room for another person. Angela, I think, had mentioned earlier, she's like, I talk about my husband maybe too much. What we learn to do is expand our heart, to grow our heart and our ability to hold two things that feel opposite but are true at the same time. So, one is I love my husband, my late husband. I love the life we had together. I love the years that we have together. And I love this new life I'm creating. I don't have to feel bad about it. I don't have to feel guilty for it. I can be excited about it. I can make room for another person and be fully devoted in there with that person. I get to be able to do both at the same time without all of the guilt trips, without all of the negative thoughts, without all of the stuff that just weighs me down. So, this is one of the things that I help teach widows to do. We also work on designing your future. So, getting very clear as much as we can about what you want. And there are some people that will say, like, oh, you need to make a list of like all the qualities of your future person. I'm not gonna make you do that, okay? And what I did was I listed my non-negotiables. I the values filter that I already talked about. Plus, I listed some things like, okay, I want them to be like a neat person. I don't want to live with somebody who's got all their stuff everywhere and clean up after them all the time. I don't want someone who has a temper, road rage issues, or whatever. Like, those are the types of things that I listed. And the rest, I said, God, you know better than me what I want and what I need. So I'm trusting that you're going to bring the right person to me and then I'm going to know it whenever that happens. So even if you're not 100% clear on everything you want for your future, there is a way that we can still design your future so that you can go into these conversations being able to articulate what it is that you want, what it is that you're looking for. Then we teach you how to magnetize your match, how to attract the person. So what type of energy you're putting out there and how you attract the right person. I'm a boss babe. I'm a go-getter. I'm a high achiever. I was a senior executive. I'm a take charge kind of a person. But what I learned is because of certain ways I was writing my profile, because of certain energy I was leading. Leading is very masculine energy. And I have a lot sometimes of that masculine, like take charge, get it done, high achieving, like that type of energy. Then men who are very masculine are kind of put off by that. So I had to learn not how to change myself, but I decided like I want someone to take care of me. I don't want somebody I have to support financially, that I have to remind to do stuff, that I have to pick up after, that I have to, like, I want someone to be able to support me in what I'm doing, but also I want to feel taken care of. I want to feel taken care of. So, how do I attract that person? How do I have that feminine energy that attracts rather than all of this, like, conquer the world type of energy? So I had to learn how to do that in my profiles and in how I interacted with people. And then lastly, how to love boldly. So to love without guilt, without insecurities, without holding back. And so how I do this, and this is we're getting into what I'll teach in the mastermind, is I developed this framework called the Heart Framework. And essentially, the first week that we kick off the mastermind, I teach each one of these every day. So, like day one, Monday, we go through what is the heart work. So, the heart work is really like clearing up emotional clutter and junk that you're holding on to, clearing up some of these things that have been holding you back, these insecurities, these the guilt, the any grief. Maybe you still have grief that you need to process. It's basically preparing your heart. Okay. Then the next day, we empower your vision. We create like what is your vision for the future and what you want. Attract your match. We're going to teach you how to attract, how to attract that person that you are, the type of person that you want to attract, and how to recognize you're not going to be able to not attract some weirdos, okay? But how to be able, again, to just enjoy the process and be like, okay, well, you're not my person, so swipe in the other way. Then on Thursday, how to reclaim your confidence. So when you have so many insecurities and so many negative thoughts and so many worries, how can you confidently enter that? And then lastly, how to thrive in love. So how to be able again to hold both, which is like I love my person, I honor my person, I'll never stop loving them, but I also can say I love this new person and that I have room in there. I have heard from several I actually have heard from several people that are dating widowers. And one of their questions to me is like, I kind of feel like the third wheel because this man like he has a shrine of his late wife. Like we want to move into a new house together, but he wants a whole room to be for her. And she's like, it's just weird. Like it's just, am I being unreasonable? Like it's a lot. And so finding that right balance of you don't have to take down all the pictures, maybe take down the giant picture in your bedroom. But how do you find that right balance of like, okay, yes, I can love and I can honor and I can remember and I can still celebrate the things that we had, but this new person doesn't feel suffocated and they don't feel like the third wheel. Like there's a good balance to doing that. So that's what we'll talk about in that section there. All right, let me scroll up here on the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything. I did the show with an empty seat too, but always found a friend last minute. Oh, I'm glad you got to do that, Anna. I will tell you one of the best feelings in the world and I did cry was the first time I went to the symphony and the seat next to me wasn't empty and Robert was there. Talk about like just that feeling of like, oh, this was so worth it. Like so worth it to sit through all of those shows and feel awkward and weird and be okay with being alone. And then to be like, I made it. We're here. We're here together. Like it's unbelievable. Okay, Jessa, how did you do that all with four kids? It's so hard for me to get out and I only have two. Um, Yeah, I think part of it is the age, and part of it is you may have to ask for help or find a babysitter, or um, I don't know what all help is available to you, but mine were old enough that I could leave them, for the afternoon or for the evening. But my in-laws are also really good about helping me out with the kids whenever I need. So for some people, I know you have to do a lot more planning because you have younger kids or a lot of kids, or that's just a more difficult situation. But again, don't you want your story to be, I did this even though I had these challenges to overcome, not, well, I can't do this because of that challenge. It's not the right way to look at it. I could have said, I'll never find someone to date again because I'm from a small town. I mean, I lived out in the country on 37 acres. I'd never wanted to leave my house. I don't like small talk. I don't like meeting people and networking. Ugh, it's not my jam. So I could have said, well, it's just not going to work for me because I don't like to do any of those things. I don't want to put myself out there. That's just not me. But instead, I get to sit here and say, even though I don't like any of those things initially, I was able to create a life and experience where I did start to enjoy it. And look, I've been able to be blessed with an amazing relationship now. I played pickleball for 9 months and just started line dancing and have men around me a lot now. Just this week, a friend said she was proud of me for living and talking. Yes, good for you. Kids will grow up. Getting out can be a future goal if they're young. I wish I had watched you 4 years ago. Well, Anna, it probably would have been a different message 4 years ago, but I'm so glad you're here now. I paid for 6 months of online dating against my better judgment. Hey, I paid for online dating apps. That's not a problem. You can still work on loving your life and taking steps to improve it, to love your life, even with little ones at home and changing your mindset. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's worth it to be able to find support with the little ones so that you can get out there and sometimes you just need to be able to like let your shoulders down and just not have to worry about taking care of all the kiddos and everyone else, but allow yourself to be taken care of. Okay. So, if you have any questions about what I covered, if you think that there is anything I didn't cover, just let me know. I'm just checking the questions box over here. Okay, got that one done. Okay. So let me tell you about the Love After Loss Mastermind. So we are launching it starting today, and it's going to run through Sunday. And what this is actually an expansion of I did a dating masterclass series. It was a six week series. That we had several people go through. This is much more expanded beyond that to help equip you. And the goal is that it's very action oriented. So this is not like 12 weeks of classes. This is not 12 weeks of you just taking information in. This is 12 weeks of you doing the thing and getting you going. And the reason I constrained it, so most of the masterminds have been 6 months, but I'm constraining it down to 12 weeks, is because I don't want you to feel like, oh, well, I'll get around to doing it. I'm going to do it at some point, right? I want you to feel a little bit of urgency of, okay, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to start actually doing some things. Now, this doesn't mean you have to create your profile day one, okay? And especially if you're somebody who's just kind of curious or somebody who acknowledges, like, I still need to process a lot within myself before I'm ready, you should still join the mastermind and you will still take action. Your steps will just be at a different stage, maybe, than someone else. So, what we're doing in the mastermind is the first week, so starting on Monday, February 17th, we're doing what we call Systems Week. And it's just teaching you the different, like the heart framework that I outlined earlier. So, for 5 days, 2 hours a day, I'm going to take you through the heart framework and you're going to create your own love after loss action plan. So that first week, you're going to get a lot of the strategies and the steps of what next steps you should take based on where you are in the framework and based on where you are in love after loss. Okay. So I'm going to help you identify your specific action plan and next steps. And then we'll have 11 weeks of weekly coaching, 2 hours every week. So altogether, it's 30 hours of group coaching in the mastermind. You also have a private Facebook group. You're going to have private forums that's just limited to people in this mastermind. And you will also have access to all of the replays and the calls that we do. I'm also going to host a virtual hot seat day, which is like a full day, depending on how many people join, where you will have an hour with the group and I will coach you personally. And you can pick whatever topic. If you want me to help you create your dating profile, if you want me to look at some matches, if you want me to coach you on your insecurities and some of the fears, if you want to talk about, when you should introduce the new person to the kids, all of those things, you will have a day to do that, and you'll have the opportunity to see other people being coached and to identify what takeaways that you have from that. You'll also be getting weekly personalized feedback from me. And then I have a few bonuses here that I'm offering sorry, I need some water. As part of this, so you will have access to the previous dating masterclass series that I sold upwards of $500. You'll have lifetime access to everything in the Brave Window membership itself. So all the courses, the calls, the live calls that we have in there, and then the mastermind replays and the Brave Widow systems that we are wrapping up at the end of this month. There are 22 weeks of live coaching calls and content in there. And the cost of the mastermind, if you want to pay in full, it'll be a little bit cheaper. It's $2,000. Or if you would rather pay by the month, it's $800 a month for 3 months. And for anyone who signs up by Friday at midnight, I'm also going to offer you 2 private one-on-one coaching calls in addition to everything else. So, but wait, there's more. Well, I try to create packages for you that are like so amazing. You go, okay, there's no reason I wouldn't do this. So in addition or as part of all of that, essentially, we're going to have some workshop sessions. Yes, workshop sessions. So during which we will create your dating profile. And listen, you don't have to sign up on the app. If you just want to do it on a Word document or on a piece of paper or whatever, we're going to create your dating profile. I'm going to help you pick what type of pictures to put on there. I'm going to help you work through like, oh, should I put widowed on there? Should I not put this? Is this too much? Is it not enough? How do I filter out some of these people? Like, we're going to get through all of that. I'm going to have a session on helping you design your dream future. So this is where people tend to get stuck is like, well, I'm not really sure what I want. So I'm going to help you design that. I will teach you the latest dating safety tips. So, if you meet someone online, then should you do a phone call? Then when do you do what if they refuse to do a video call? What should you do? If you're going to meet them in person, what are the things that you can do to make sure that you're safe and someone's looking out for you? We're going to talk about all of that. I'm going to help you assess your specific attachment style and learn at a high level the other attachment styles. So this will help you with less of the roller coaster stuff, right? Like less of the, well, I thought he really liked me and now he's distant all of a sudden. What's going on? A lot of that's going to be in attachment styles. And then we have the virtual hot seat dates. So if you would like to sign up, go to bravewidow.com/love. I am going to close the doors to the mastermind on Sunday, but if you sign up by Friday, I'm also going to throw in some private one-on-one coaching calls. Let me see here who this is for, and I'm going to check the chat just to see if there's any questions that you have. I think a lot of you are young widows. I'm 70 and self-sufficient, but would still love to share life with. Yeah, Barbara. I actually interviewed a couple that was in their 80s that met in their 80s. She was widowed. I think he was divorced, and they met in their 80s, and they're together. And they're technically not married, but they are partners. And we actually do have some other widows that are, I can't remember, 60s or 70s that are dating. Thank you for empowering more widows. Anna, you're so welcome. People are sharing all their ages, which is amazing. Which dating apps are best? Well, best is a personal preference, I guess. I will tell you what I liked, which was I actually like Facebook dating a lot, which is free. And I'll tell you the reason I liked it. So, if you haven't used it, it doesn't match you with your friends. Okay. Might be weird. And you have a choice whether or not you want to be matched with friends of your friends. And I said yes, because what I liked about it was I got to see who else knew that person. So, like Robert, we had 12 friends in common on Facebook. So I felt pretty comfortable, like, I can call a few people and they're going to know this guy and they're going to be able to tell me about him. Like that for me was just a comforting thing. And I felt like Facebook for me was better at bringing up people who were local. So I had some mild success on Bumble, which is the dating app where women start the conversation. Like you have to start it first. You don't wait for the guy. I tried Hinge. I don't know what. I did not get good matches and things on Hinge. So I did not stick with that one. I tried several other ones, probably like one, there was a Christian one. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but honestly, I had a lot of scammers, scammy type people on the Christian one. So that did not work for me, but I know other people it has worked for. So I think it's just try some different ones out and see which ones you like. I wish I had the statistics in front of me, but I don't. But one thing to keep in mind is that I want to say like 80%, I'm making this up, right? But it's like 80% of women try to match with like the top 10% of men. Like dating apps are they lean very much in the favor of women. Men have a much, much harder time on dating apps. They don't get nearly as many matches. They don't have a great experience getting people to like actually talk and have a conversation. And I would hear and see a lot where it was more like women on there trying to get guys to go on their OnlyFans or, it was some kind of buy 'em stuff. It was kind of more of a scammy situation. So, that's just something that you need to be aware of, that the odds are actually in your favor on dating apps over men, and that some of them get a little jaded because of that. It's a little bit more difficult. And next time I'm going to put those statistics in here because it's super interesting. Okay, so any questions over anything that we covered today? I will be sending out the replay as soon as it's uploaded, and you will get an email with more information about the mastermind and signing up. I would love to see you there, no pun intended. But great, thank you for joining me. We are right at 12:30, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.